Hey, horror fans! Once again, it is me, the Horror Miser Manichi. Yes, time to review the latest horror film that came out a couple weeks ago. Finally got a chance to see it yesterday. It is time to review the reimagining of Faces of Death. Ha 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 ha!
Y'all ready for this?
Hey, horror fans! Once again, it is me, the Horror Miser Manichi. Now, Faces of Death is a 2026 American horror film. It was directed by Daniel Goldharber. It was written by Daniel Goldharber and Isa Mazzelli. Now, the film stars Barbara Ferreira, Darce Montgomery, Josie Tuha, Aaron Holiday, Jermaine Flower, and Charlie XCX. Now, in the film, a woman employed as a website content moderator comes across a series of violent videos reproducing death scenes from a film. Uh-oh. Now, I'm sure most millennials and Gen Zs may have not have seen or heard about the 1978 Mondo horror film called Faces of Death. Now, it was written and directed by American filmmaker John Allen Schwartz. The film is a mockumentary that centers on a pathologist named Francis B. Gross, who shows footage of people dying in some very gruesome and violent ways. Now, it was first believed that the footage contained in the film was real, but it was later revealed that some of the footage, while it was taken from pre existing footage of people dying, the rest of the footage of the film was fake. Now, being that I actually saw the film in theaters, I believe that most of the stuff was fake because it just didn't seem real to me at the time when we first saw it. But that was the going thing going around when Faces of Death came out. Everyone thought the stuff was real, but it was later on that while some of the footage contained in the film was pre-existing recording footages of whether it was people getting eaten by mauled by a bear, somebody getting shot by the SWAT team, while some of that stuff was real, was pre-recording footing. Mostly other stuff was just fake. It wasn't real. Not while the film critics bashed the film, it was a success at the box office, grossing over 35 million worldwide. Obviously, didn't cost that much to make the film, and it also gained a cult following, which led to several sequels. We had Faces of Death 2, Faces of Death 3, a whole bunch of Faces of Death films that came out because of this film. Now, American filmmaker Daniel Goldhaber brings us his reimagining version of the 1978 cult film. This one is also called Faces of Death. Now, we're introduced to Margot Romeo, a young woman who works at a TikTok like platform called Kinko as a content moderator. Now, she is responsible for filtering out any content that is deemed offensive or violent, and one day she comes across a violent depiction of an eerie real decapitation video. Ooh. Now, while she believes that the video is staged using some very good realistic practical effects, she comes across several other more videos featuring violent and realistic looking deaths, believing that the people in the videos are actually being killed for real. Now, this drives Margot down the dark path where she believes that there is a serial killer that is murdering people in the same manner that the people in the film Faces of Death dies. That's kind of what the film is about. Now, when I first heard about this film and heard about the premise that they were using, so I have to give Dan and his team credit for coming up with an interesting way to incorporate the 78 film instead of just making a remake, because we've seen plenty of remakes before when it comes to horror films. But he decided to go with this path instead, and I thought that was a good idea. I thought it was very interesting. However, after watching the film, what we have here is just your standard slasher film, and for that, while it does have its moment, it does fall flat, especially during the third act of the film, which I'll discuss later on. Now, I will give credit the film does a good job of recreating the death scenes from the original film, obviously taking advantage of modern technology and the advancement of practical effects. Obviously, when you take a look at this film, the person that's committing the crimes, well, he's not hidden, so we know who this person is. He's not hidden very well. Is obviously taking advantage of the modern technology that we didn't have back when this film first came out in 1978 and shows you what some people will do in the name of clicks and views in today's society. Now, Dan and his team do not hold back on the violence and gore. But it really doesn't reach the heights of the original film. I didn't think it would, but I believe there is enough here to satisfy the gorehounds. Now, as I stated earlier, while this was an interesting way to incorporate the original film, Dan and his writing partner, Ilsa Mazzelli, doesn't come up with anything new or original here. It's just your basic standard slasher film with an interesting gimmick. And not only is it just your typical slasher film here, it does have some one dimensional characters here that the audience doesn't care what happens to them. They're just there to be sliced and diced like we've seen in other slasher films here. Now, I'll give Barbie Ferreira, known for her performance in the HBO series Euphoria, does a good job as Margot, a woman struggling with issues regarding the tragedy that took place with her sister that plays into the situation she finds herself in here. No, because we get to see early on that she obviously was also into social media as well until an incident happened with her sister. Kind of plays into the story, but that's what we get to see, and that's what she's struggling with. However, the script never explores that issue, only when the story needs it to be, limiting any type of growth Margaret needs for a story like this. I mean, if you want the audience to care what's happened to her, let's have some growth. Let's have some, what led her to do this stuff. Why did her sister get involved? The film never explores that. I'm not looking for an extra 20 minutes or something, but at least something for her character to grow, but that does not happen here because the script doesn't allow it to. Now, Darcy Montgomery does a great job with his over the top performance as crazed killer Arthur Spivak, who seems obsessed with his method of killing his victims. He's like an over the top millennial or Gen Z guy that feels as though this is the only way he can become famous or do anything to get clicks and views is by recreating the kills and the deaths from the original Faces of Death '78 film. Now, I have some problems with this film, especially in the third act, as I believe most people will have a problem when it comes to the use of Narcan that we have in this film. I won't reveal why it's needed, but I'm pretty sure if you saw the film, you know what I'm referring to. There are some other moments that take place in the film that will cause the audience to say, no way that happens in real life, stretching to suspend your belief theory when it comes to watching movies. Again, I don't know what Dan and his team were thinking, but if you're going to do some of the stuff that they do in this film, you have to make it somewhat believable. Yes, we are suspending our belief when it comes to watching films, but if you're going to do some of the blatant things that they do in this particular film, is going to take the audience out of the picture, and you're not going to have the tension and suspense that you need for a film like this to work. Now, there is a message in this film regarding social media and how people have become desensitized regarding violence and how people have become inclined to make violent videos as most platforms will not ban them. I mean, some of the crazy stuff young people will do to get clicks and views, we've seen that before in the past. Some of the crazy stuff people do online, obviously, Logan Paul comes into mind, and there are some other people, some of the stuff that they do online for clicks and views. Whether it's chewing tides, those tide balls, or some of the other crazy stuff. It's just like you guys are sick, and we become desensitized for it. So obviously, when you see the events taking place in this particular film, especially at the end of the film, it's not surprising that people will say, "Nope, that's fake. I don't believe it. It's not real." Now, as for this film, despite some decent gore and practical effects and some good acting from Barbie and Darcy, this film is just your standard slasher film that doesn't reach the heights that I believe Daniel and his team thought it would. Otherwise, I don't think they would have named the film Faces of Death, taking advantage of what the '78 film and the rest of the films did for this franchise. So I'm going to give Faces of Death 2026 only two out of the miser's five bloody gold coins. Like I said, there's some good things in this particular film, but overall, it's just your standard slasher film with some one-dimensional characters, an okay protagonist, an over-the-top villain, and that's kind of basically it. And there you have it, horror fans. That is my review of Faces of Death 2026. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, like, and share. It really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. Have you seen Faces of Death? Did you enjoy it? Tell me, leave your comments in the comment section, in the comment section below, and tell you what you thought about the film. Also, if you're new here, please hit that subscriber button, ring that notification bell. That way, we notify anytime when I put a new video such as this one. Once again, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as the Horror Miser Monty G, and always remember, horror rules. I see you in my next video. You guys stay safe out there.